Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast, your source for practical insights and tools bridging the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine with the advancements of modern functional medicine, empowering you to live a life of wellness. We are dedicated to promoting a healthier world by providing tools, knowledge, and simple things you can do every day. So if you're ready to adopt new health habits and do things differently, listen and learn here. Hi everyone, welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm Susannah Freeman, Clinic Director at Great Turning Healing Center and Guide to Wellness. And with me today is Dawn Schwem, Health Coach at Great Turning. We're going to be talking about cleansing the body, when, why, and how to do it well. Let's get started. Dawn, what do you think? Why should we cleanse?
Well, there are a lot of reasons to cleanse. First and foremost, if you're feeling kind of cruddy, you might consider it. But there's a lot of detail to that.
It's such a big topic. One of our patients used to call it the C word, but she got over it. So simply, we cleanse so that you have more energy to do things you love to do in your life. Period. If you relate to this, I want you to keep listening and check out the show notes. We'll have more resources for you and a recipe. Our last seasonal topic was February 2024, just 2 months back. Winter into Spring was the title. And with this growing season that we're in right now, we might experience this rising, inspiring energy. You might feel that springtime boost. We might have motivation to take on spring cleaning or gardening or even a new idea. We may be thinking about losing that winter body weight and getting ready for summer. And we might step into that swimsuit and find, gosh, it doesn't fit as well as it used to. So the deal is, if we have any metabolic or physical dysfunction left over from the winter, from, eating a lot over the holidays, or maybe not getting outside as much, any inflammation, any lack of circulation in your body, tension, either mental or physical, this can lead to irritability and restlessness. In traditional Chinese medicine, we call this liver qi stagnation. And we'll talk about more on this in just a minute. What I want you to know is that it can be uncomfortable and that a spring cleanse is really, really helpful. And none of this is a medical issue. We're talking about our comfort in our lives and the quality of our lives. And if we, as you all know, if we sit too long with some of these minor discomforts and we put on weight, or our blood sugar gets elevated or our blood pressure goes up, then it becomes a trip to the doctor and a trip to us for more medical concerns. Today, we're really talking about how to be optimizing your health and staying fit. And like I said, being happy and having the energy to do what you like to do in your life. Mm-hmm. So with that, Dawn, can you tell me, how do you know when you need to cleanse?
Mm-hmm. When I'm not feeling my best, I need to do something to make myself feel better. And while knowing when to cleanse is very much a sensory experience, I might not necessarily be having these super clear symptoms, but I experience a lot of tension taking over my body.
And some of our patients, if you don't mind me interrupting, will say they feel lethargic and dull. And they might call it depression, but I think it's more just a lethargy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some of the things that might pop up, I might turn over a new leaf or make a new change or be inspired to clear out my old self and bring in some new vitality to that. And a big part of it for me is that you get to rebalance and assess where you're at with your health.
Nice. I love it. So these blockages, this tension, this lethargy that I said earlier in traditional Chinese medicine, which is my original training and expertise, is called liver qi stagnation. And it can happen any time of year, yet it can be exaggerated in the spring. So this is why we're talking about the liver so much and why we're talking about cleansing. So I want you all to know this is a very complex concept in traditional Chinese medicine, but just a brief little pearl for you here. In traditional Chinese medicine, every organ is both physical and energetic. Each organ system has an association with a season, a flavor, an emotion, and an energetic pathway in the body. The physical functions of each organ, of course, are the same as those described in modern medicine. That is not different. In this discussion, we're talking about both. We're talking about how to support the actual liver organ and the detoxification processes in that organ. We're also talking about how to support our energy, our focus, and our mood.
Mm-hmm.
And when you work with us, you'll see how this plays out. So don't get too stuck on the liver as the organ only, because this is a much larger conversation about circulation in the mind, in the gut, in the muscles, in the mood, in our daily rhythms of our energy.
I love the idea of mood circulation.
Yep. Just made it up right here, folks. But it's kind of a thing. In Chinese medicine, when somebody has a liver imbalance, they will have sort of alternating cycles of moods. They'll have low moods and depression and lethargy, and then they'll be super wound up and kind of hyper and high energy, and they'll go back and forth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to regulate that a little bit and keep it more clean and clear and give you a really nice energy rather than a swing too high and swing too low. Okay?
Yeah.
So as we shift into the spring season, and in a lot of parts in the country and the world, we're already fully there. We're a little behind here in Montana. How can we show up as our best selves? And if you're thinking, like me, that a tune-up right about now is a good idea, then what might that look like? So this is another reason that we just want to teach this. It's a complex topic, this notion of cleansing. Please listen back to the March episodes from last year, 2023, on detoxification, because that's where you're going to understand the liver and gain a new understanding of how detoxification actually works in the body. Please also listen to me and Dawn where we're talking in February 2024, March 2023, for perspectives on more of the TCM, traditional Chinese medicine liver, and the psychospiritual side of the liver and cleansing. This episode is building on those two previous conversations. We want you to come away from this episode with a new perspective on how and why to cleanse. And now that you know how to do that, you also can know that you don't have to do it alone, that we all need to be active participants in our health. And that said, you may also need some guidance and mentorship to make those changes for real in your life and to make them last. People get overwhelmed sometimes by that sheer number of cleanses out there and all the promises out on the internet, and a lot of misinformation about these and how much they can help. And sometimes people do the wrong cleanse for their bodies at the wrong time. They can be really uncomfortable. This is our area of expertise, and we want to help you demystify it with this series of podcast episodes. We're skilled, and we can partner with you in a way that works for you. We want to make your changes more lasting and easier. So the first step is knowing when we need to cleanse. And there's going to be times when we advise you not to cleanse. The next step will be how. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Dawn, I'm wondering if you can help with this. Have you used cleansing or fasting in your life?
I have. I appreciate you talking about the organ systems and understanding that it's not just the physical organ itself. There's other aspects that we need to take into consideration. In my work as a health coach, I see that, and that's largely how I work. So, and through my own lived experiences, I found that taking care of one aspect of your health translates into a multitude of other areas. And the effect is reciprocal, right? So we might change the way we're cooking, the way we're eating, and then we see other things start to change. Our household dynamic and our relationships might look different, and we gain a new perspective on what could be. Or perhaps it's the other direction. So we might start to improve our relationships and our communication, our stress, and then we develop a desire to see our physical health improve.
Nice.
So personally, I've used cleansing to identified food intolerances. That was so important for my health, especially after college and recovering from the stress and damage of that experience.
I did that too.
Yeah.
Why is that?
We're tuned into our bodies, right? And we know when that needs to happen. A big part of that, like I said earlier, is recalibrating understanding of health. For me, that often comes in mentally and emotionally, and food is deeply tied to mental and emotional well-being as well. The last time I did a cleanse was right before the holidays, and
that sounds hard.
I did it early enough, kind of between Thanksgiving and Christmas time. the reason I wanted to do it was to help recalibrate my understanding of what felt good and what didn't feel good.
Right.
And so that when I went into those holidays and I was eating all of the sugar and the rich foods, I went into them after having really cleaned up my diet for a few weeks. And I didn't have the cravings for that. I wasn't drawn to overeating. I knew what was good for me.
Cool.
And I didn't want to push that too far. I've also done it for psychospiritual purposes, but this holiday thing was amazing.
I want to reinforce that because hands down, every single person that we have guided in the clinic through a cleanse between the holidays or before the holidays has had absolutely their healthiest, best holiday season ever for these reasons. Right. I love that. When and how you do it is really important. So I'm thinking back to, I don't think it was my first cleanse ever, but yeah, I was studying for the boards. I was in grad school, and I became aware that I had these food intolerances. And I did, in the midst of studying for the boards and being a full-time student and working as a massage therapist, I did hands down the most rigorous cleanse I've ever done. It was literally like 3 different foods a day. It was pretty challenging. And I think that's why I did so well on my boards, quite frankly. I was super clear, and I had no distractions.
Yeah.
Food was not a distraction. So something to think about, but not for everybody all the time.
Yeah, and you probably had really good, like you said, super clear, really good mental clarity.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was easy.
No, I have no doubt.
So we can use it for all kinds of reasons, and one of the things that we really like to encourage is that you use this time also for reflection and visioning the next steps in your life. So yes, us doing it in these transition was very intentional. We'll often recommend that people meditate more, you go on a media fast or scale back how much time you spend on your phone, more time journaling, more time outside. These are all really, really important things to be doing, and they will absolutely tie in with a cleanse in a powerful way.
Yeah, definitely. More reflection time is always a good thing. I don't think I've ever met anybody who didn't get something impactful out of taking more time for reflection.
Yep.
I have a question for you, though. So,
Sure.
What is the difference between a cleanse and a fast?
Good question. Yeah, we could talk for a long time about this, and we will. Fasting can mean many different things. It can mean altering the content of the diet by simplifying or cutting out irritants or potential allergens. For example, a juice cleanse or a fast or a bone broth fast. Fasting could be altering the timing of the diet, and this is something that Dawn Schwem and I will be chatting more about, is intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, when and when not to do this and how to do it well, likely our next podcast. Fasting can also mean altering the amount of foods consumed, from a partial food to a water-only fast. Some people you hear about doing a fruit fast. These I would caution to be very careful and make sure you have medical guidance on this one. They can all be combined to one degree or another for a deeper cleanse. They're not always the best for you. Cleansing implies a clearing out, and fasting, like we just described, does exactly that for the body, and it has additional benefits for the subtle body and for our psychological and psychospiritual health. Today we're talking about cleansing and how to support the body and the mind to be happier and healthier. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And I appreciate you emphasizing the psychological and the psychospiritual, because there are so many sources throughout history, throughout different cultures, that show the benefits of cleansing, both physically and spiritually or psychologically. I mean, everybody's heard that, like treating the body like a temple. Well, I don't know if everybody's heard it, but a lot of people have.
I have.
And this idea is that when we are treating our body like a temple, like a sacred being that we are nourishing well, it's bringing us closer to something maybe higher than ourselves, whether that's deity or source or the divine, but also closer to ourselves, right? Who we are at the core.
Right.
And throughout lots of different religions, they use the idea of a cleanse or a fast in some form. So things like Lent or Ramadan, Passover. There's complex cultural practices around fasting in Hinduism and Buddhist traditions. We also use cleansing out as a preparation for experiences of initiation, like a vision quest, right? Or plant medicine ceremonies. And usually this involves very clean eating, again, tying back to food as an immediate way to help clear out all of those cobwebs. And so we're eating really, really quality foods, no refined or processed foods like sugar, bread, pasta. Red meats can be inflammatory, so we might cut those out.
What do you mean? What do you eat then?
Oh, putting me on the spot. Well,
we'll get to that. Don't worry. We're just playing with you.
Yeah, we will chat about that later. But we'll dive into detail on that. But the idea is that we're focusing on clearing the internal, the etheric, in addition to the physical body, and they're deeply integrated. You cannot have one without the other, right?
Yes.
And so cleansing our bodies might help bring us closer to ourselves, to our higher purpose.
Right.
No spirituality required,
Yep.
We're removing all of the distractions and the dross.
Dross.
Yes, dross. For those who don't know, dross is a term that comes from alchemy. It's referring to the raw, impure form of something that gets refined into a purer substance. And it's also the term for like the impurities that float to the surface during that transformation, which is what we are transforming through the process of a cleanse.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Dross in this case would be experiences that maybe no longer serve us.
Cool.
Or habits and patterns that no longer serve us.
And making room for the new.
Absolutely.
Which is what the springtime is all about.
Yeah.
Cool. Loving that. And then you also are talking about separating the desire for food from the desire for something else in life.
Yes. You can kind of think about different ways that we nourish ourselves, right? We do it with the food we eat and the experiences we have or the relationships we have. So many aspects of non-food related nourishment, right? In my background, we call this primary food. This first thing that nourishes us is the people, the community, the relationships we have to our surroundings, etc. And then the secondary food is what we actually physically put into our bodies, because we have to think about this balance between both. And you might see imbalances in those as well.
I love that, Dawn. Primary food versus secondary food. I've not heard you say that before today in all of our work together. I love that it's coming out now. I think of it and often chat with our patients about, I just thought of it in a much more sort of mundane way of like changing the channel, but I like the primary food versus secondary food better. This idea that you're going to fill yourself up with things other than food. So take a walk out in nature somewhere, or even a walk around the street, right? Like get outside, point your eyes to the sun, take a hot bath, get a massage, get a hug, right? Play with your dog, whatever it is, but something else besides food. And I think you'll find, sleep more.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that you're more comfortable than you might think, and it's not really about food.
Well, this idea of like filling your cup, when you're like, oh, I need to fill my cup.
Right.
You don't necessarily think food right away. You're like, oh, I want to go laugh with my friends.
Exactly. And also it reminds me of, I went hiking in Nepal for a couple of months way back when, and we got well off the sort of main traveled trekking routes into places where nobody spoke English, and it was really just spending time with Nepalis as they do. And you would stop in a little tea house, and they may or may not have a menu, and they would simply give you, you'd sit down, and that meant that you were hungry. They might ask you if you'd like to eat, but it was sort of assumed, and they'd bring you tea, and they would bring you the food that they had cooked that day. And it was really just eating to sustain yourself. And it was not this, well, what should I eat? It was, am I hungry? And that was a really a game changer for me, to just be, oh, I eat because I'm hungry, because I need to sustain myself. Now, we can have enjoyment with food, and don't get me wrong, this is enjoying your food and doing that with the people that you love is huge. So, but when it comes to nutrition and nourishment and sustenance, we're actually really just talking about what is the fuel that will make us healthy and happy.
Right.
Okay, so distinguishing those is really important. Cool. Anything to add on that?
I think a touch point that people could relate to is understanding like emotional eating. And that's
right.
where that imbalance
Yes.
is. That's
Right.
not just
Uh-huh.
feeding us because we need to nourish our bodies.
Right.
It's because we're having something else that's missing or something we're trying to medicate, right?
Right.
With
Right.
some other pattern.
Remembering what your primary food sources are. Okay.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about balancing, we want to make sure that your relationship to fasting and cleansing is balanced. If you're not comfortable and experienced, it's really important to seek outside guidance. When you work with us, we want to know your nutritional imbalances ahead of time and your medical history. We want to see some blood chemistry. Oftentimes, if there's any question, we will have you do a comprehensive stool analysis. This can really help us understand the root cause of your symptoms and how to best focus your cleanse. This is super important, folks. I recall a patient we worked with over the years for quite a long time, and she had this weight gain that didn't make sense for her, and she was long-time hypothyroid, which is a medical condition, and it's not a difficult one. It's really common, but she was taking medications for that. With her doctor, we diagnosed and supported the thyroid, but this weight gain still continued. And she kept going. She tried a couple of different cleanses. She did them with us, and it wasn't working. And we couldn't figure it out. Finally, we tested her gut with a stool analysis, and we found a pretty significant gut infection that she had no symptoms for, none. We treated the gut infection and the inflammation that it was causing. Her CRP was quite high, which is an inflammatory marker. And once we did that, she lost the weight easily. She didn't need another cleanse. It was simply fixing the gut infection and the inflammation that gut infection was causing. And we did this with supplements and herbs and very targeted medications with her doctor. But the primary treatment was herbs and supplements. A generic cleanse did not work for her. It was the individualized gut pathogen clearing protocol that we did. And then we did a whole bunch of repair after that. And it worked beautifully. Another example of a time that I would not recommend a cleanse. I mean, anytime, it is a commitment. It does take time and energy. I just had a little adventure, if you will, with some surgery. It all went really, really well. And during that surgery recovery, I found the hardest part was the anesthesia and the recovering my energy from the surgery and the healing that was required. So now is not a time for a rigorous cleanse for me, but I'm using what's called the biocidin protocol, which we'll explain in a little bit. And so it's very gentle and it's very targeted. It's supporting liver detox pathways, it's supporting tissue repair, I'm clearing inflammation, and I'm rebalancing my brain after that anesthesia. It felt not unlike a head injury or a post-COVID protocol. So this is a very targeted, guided, it's still a cleanse, right? But it's not rigorous. It's not causing me to work harder. If anything, it's super easy and gentle. And boy, it's helping already. I can really feel it coming back and normalizing, and post-surgery recovery is going great. It might not look like I'm cleansing, but I am, and super careful with diet as well. So those are some examples of choose your time well and choose your cleanse to match the concerns that you have in your body, and make sure that it matches what you need for you. Anything else to add there, Dawn?
I would love to hear a little bit about, supporting ourselves through this process. We need to include certain foods, right, that nourish ourselves. So we're in springtime, which means, yay, we get like fresh produce again that's in season. What foods would be good to include in our diet just as a general well-being through this time to help with like the irritability that you talked about?
Sure. Good one. So yes, guidance is important, understanding your medical condition and the how and the when and the why. And then most of the cleanses that we do put a strong emphasis on food. And so you're using food as medicine. And this is why I was teasing you back then. What do you mean if I'm not eating sugar, bread, and animal products, what am I going to eat? So obviously what that leaves is mostly plant proteins and vegetables. And in many cases, I'll modify a cleanse and add a little bit of very clean, very careful meat because some people really need that for their digestion and also to maintain their strength. When we're talking about what to eat, here are some key things to think about from the springtime and anytime. The liver system loves sour foods. And the springtime, it's easy to get those. That means dark green leafy vegetables, dandelions. Make sure, please, they're not sprayed. Okay, but dandelions in your backyard, as long as they've not been sprayed, are fantastic. Dawn and I I think it was May of 2023, did a gardening episode that has lots of really good tips and tricks for how to get greens into your freezer all year long if you start right now. So please listen back to last May 2023. Sour foods might include leek, vinegar, all citrus, yogurt, sauerkraut, pickles, sourdough bread, apples, raspberries.
My mouth is watering.
I know, right?
That sounds so good.
Isn't it yummy? I know, we just crave that this time of year. Now, if you are somebody who, according to traditional Chinese medicine, has a pattern that we call dampness, then I want you to be a little bit sparing with your sour foods because it can be hard to digest. So listen back to the November 2023 podcast for more information on this. We spent a whole half hour or so talking about this. So if you have more dampness, and you'll know that if you've come to see us at clinic, we would have told you this. And again, this is like qi stagnation. It's a Chinese medical term that once we explain it to you makes a lot of sense, and it's very straightforward. People with dampness benefit more from bitter foods. So that's a different topic, but just heads up, don't go crazy with all these sour foods. They will help you, these sour foods, to calm that irritability that can come with the springtime. So again, listen to the This Winter into Spring podcast, and we'll tell you more about that. One of the lovely, super fun ways that you can introduce sour foods into your diet, in addition to backyard greens, is a shrub recipe, and we have the recipe in the show notes. It's a pineapple ginger shrub. You can use it for a vinaigrette. You can drink it by itself. I like to mix it with a little bit of soda water. It's really yummy. You could put it in a cocktail, but you certainly don't need to. We would recommend, if you're cleansing, that you make a mocktail and just do this with a little bit of soda water.
I bet it would, make a delicious mocktail.
It is so good. That's how I like it the best.
Yeah. You can even put it in a little wine glass and make it feel fancy.
Absolutely. Sit out on the back porch, a little happy hour. And pineapple season is happening right now through July. Fresh is best, and now is the perfect season for it. It takes a little bit of time to make this shrub. Check the recipe. I have some sprouts growing in my kitchen right now. They're yummy. Broccoli sprouts are the most nutrient-rich superfood around, next to organ meats, and sprouts are delicious. You can literally grow them in your kitchen. Please be aware to only eat them fresh, and know that they can mold easily. So if you have a mold issue, maybe skip it and just eat them up when they're ready, and don't let them sit around. And they're fabulous nutrition for you. I'm going to segue a little bit into more the medical side. If you come to see us in the clinic, you want to do a cleanse. Here are some of the examples of cleanses that we use every day in the clinic. We have a bunch of people doing it right now. We're going to pair these with coaching on nutrition and diet. You'll likely see Dawn as part of this process. You'll see me. And also, please listen to our March 2023 podcast for lots more detail. We use a lot of purification program cleanses from Standard Process. This is 21 days. It's a beautiful reset when you're healthy and you're trying to shed a little bit of weight and want, like Dawn said earlier, a little more clarity, a little more reset with your diet, so that you start craving those carrots and greens instead of breads and cheeses. It's a really lovely, life-changing program that lots of our patients do every year. They finish it out and they're like, well, I just want to eat this way always now. I'm like, you
That's
have at
great.
it. If you don't have 21 days, you can do a 10-day detox program, again, with supplements and herbs from standard process. And it's just a little quicker and it's a little more inflammation targeted. If you have more of a medical concern, your more complex history, especially autoimmunity, or if you have any food allergies, we will likely recommend the Apex Repair and Clear program. Again, we have lots of people who do this. It is a little more rigorous, I won't lie. It's also life-changing. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, we definitely want to guide you, give you lots of support, and modify it. It can be really strict if you let it, so we make sure it's tailored to you. So above all, we want this to be manageable, doable, and something that you are just so glad at the end that you did it, rather than, oh my gosh, that was too hard, I'll never do it again. That's not our goal whatsoever. So just keep that in mind. We hold your hand to the extent that it is useful so you have success. Lots of people have heard about the fasting mimicking diet from a company called Prolon and a man named Walter Longo. Lots of science on fasting behind this program. It's 5 days. It's targeted towards people with metabolic syndrome who need to lose some belly fat or reduce their blood sugar. If you're doing any regenerative medicine protocols with PRP or prolotherapy, it's a fabulous thing to do just ahead of those regen programs. If you're like me and you have something very targeted towards brain, blood, chronic virus, or a sticky infection that you're trying to clear, we might point you towards the Biocidin protocol. This is something I've been using for many, many years. People of all ages, it's a fabulous protocol and very flexible. We can always individualize an elimination diet in any of these. Well, not the short ones, but the longer ones. If we have 21 days, we can help you understand if there are certain foods you're not tolerating well and what to do about it and how to improve your tolerance and improve your gut function. So we can always help you with something specific and individualized. That's a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in boring you with the details, but just to let you know that this is something we have a lot of skill in, a lot of experience. We love working with people who are trying to find what is the right food program for me that makes sense, that keeps me well, that's not too stressful, it fits my values, my budget. Lots of people talk about, well, what do I do when I travel? We work with them on that. So if you're inspired, if you're motivated, and you want to join us in some version of a spring renewal, or maybe you're listening to this in fall and winter and you want to go into the holidays at your best, let us know. Be in touch. We'll do some assessments with you. Hopefully you have some labs you can share with us, or we can help you get those. We'll choose a good fit, and then we'll guide you through it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah. I think I just want to reiterate that cleansing does so much for more than just your body. You end up seeing that ripple effect outwards.
Yeah,
I really
indeed.
enjoyed talking about all of this. It's fun, and I appreciate getting to look at it from multiple perspectives and really take an integrated approach. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always fun to collaborate with you, Dawn.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you all in the clinic or online, however you want to join us. You always feel free. If you like this podcast, we want you to share it. Check out the show notes for more resources. We're going to put some book titles in there and that shrub recipe. And remember, you can always reach us. We have several websites, greatturninghealing.com. And then our functional nutrition corner is Guide to Wellness. And of course, our phone number is 406-599-0088. We love you. Bye.